welcome into another edition of Target Score Winnipeg. And look who's back. Taylor Allen has joined us back from Japan, back on the show. Taylor, good to see you again, buddy.
Yeah, man. Happy to be back. And I mean, the rumors were that I missed the last couple episodes because I was in Japan and whatnot. But actually, you banned me for the show for these past few ones because you didn't want to hear me talk about my Indiana Pacers and how your Boston Celtics couldn't even get out of the second round. Oh man. So folks, I mean, really, I've been anxious to get back on, but Joey just didn't want to hear it. But he's had some time to process his feelings and whatnot. So now I'm back on and I'm happy to be here. And no offense taken, Joey.
Feel good about yourself?
I do. Yeah. Honestly, I really do. I do. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
To be fair, I'm kind of rooting for Indiana. This is like a good final for me would be the Pacers OKC, because I love OKC. I love watching them as a team. I love that they've got Canadians that are key contributors and the MVP. And the Pacers are a fun team to watch. And obviously, I am a Nick hater right now. So watching the Pacers dismantle them has been a great pleasure. No one hates the Pacers, right? The Pacers are like the team everybody's kind of rooting for, especially when they're playing New York. But yeah, dude, I was shocked only because I'll touch on this quickly because we have to move on to like actual CEBL stuff. But with Boston, they got away from everything that worked in the entire season, first round, and just like we're a whole different team in the second round against New York. That was the frustrating part because it wasn't things that have like developed over time. It was just like, this is a whole different team. And then I should have saw it coming because there's like a 5, 6, 7 year run of the defending champion getting knocked out in the second round. So whatever, man, New York had its moment and then their moment was taken away. So I love that. That's great. But the Seabears, on your return to the show, before you were here in the first episode, when we launched the new season, we're talking about expectations and we were talking about, the team and how we thought looks good, much bigger team, probably going to be a lot more work inside. We're going to see a lot more dominance on the glass. We're not going to see anything like last year. But through 4 games, it's not really clicking.
No, I think if there's one word to summarize the first 4 games and just kind of the season as a whole, it's discouraging. And I mean, it is still very early. It is a longer season now. And as we talked about before, I mean, they're hosting the Final Four weekend, so they're going to be there at the end. So as a rough start to the year is not the end of the world. But with that said, you're just watching this team. And I mean, in their defense, I mean, they were playing a very, very good Vancouver team last night. And I mean,
that was their best game. Like the first half of that game was the best they've played this season.
Absolutely. And I mean, heading into this game, Vancouver was beating teams on average by 35 points per game. Yeah. You don't see that at the professional level. Like that is absolutely insane. So Seabears lost by 11. I mean, you don't really want to pat yourself on the back too much for losing a game by 11 at home. But you're right. I mean, they did look a little better in that one, but still, just as a whole, these 4 games, I'm still kind of struggling to figure out like what the identity is of this team. And they're shooting the ball horrendously, like really bad. So who knows, maybe once they shoot kind of closer to a league average, things will kind of pick up a little bit here. And they're still missing Simi Shitu as well, who's going to be a massive piece for them, literally, when he gets in with them. But I mean, on the year, they're shooting 25.2% from 3, which is not good, obviously.
17% in that game against Calgary in Calgary.
Yeah.
Like, it's bad.
Yeah, it's ugly.
Worse than the league.
Exactly, yeah, literally worse than the league. And then shooting from the field overall, 36.3% as well. So you're not going to win many games shooting like that. So unless that picks up, this is just going to be a sign of things to come. But I mean, this is basketball, right? They're not the first team in pro hoops to have 4 poor shooting games. So who knows? But yeah, just discouraging so far.
Yeah, it's last in field goal percentage, last in 3-point percentage, and free throws. Not a recipe for success. Did see some great things in spurts yesterday. First quarter, I mean, they forced 7 turnovers on Vancouver, which was great. But before we get more into that, I mean, the news of the day, we're recording on May 29th, just about an hour or so ago, maybe a little more, news that Mason Bourcier released from the Sea Bears. Bourcier played 23 games regular season, 24 with the playoff game last year. Mutual parting ways, according to the statement. Like looking at his stats, I mean, he was averaging like 20 something minutes a game last year. It was down to 11 this year. His numbers have dropped, in the short 3-game span. But not something I had on my 2025 Sea Bears bingo card was Mason Bourcier wanting to leave. But here we are. My initial reaction, Taylor, is that this was a situation where maybe Mason didn't feel he was being properly utilized and probably felt like he could do more. But clearly the coaching staff wasn't feeling the same in terms of, or at least there was a misunderstanding of what that expectation was. Because the minutes have gone down from year to year. I did expect him to have a bigger role this early in the season, particularly when you're trying to hold that continuity and needing 2 Canadians on the floor. But with that, it's a competitive to get that floor time. And it's weird to say because the stats don't show like there's much for the Sea Bears to prove, but they do have some big stars. And, like you're not taking Terry Roberts off the floor. You're not taking Tevian Jones off the floor, regardless of the fact that, he might not be shooting well. And maybe sometimes he might need a break and have someone else in there to try and shake things up a little bit. Jalen Williams is there. So the other 2 Canadian spots, right? You've got Kyler Filowich, who's been getting a ton of time. Emmanuel Acott, who's a starter. Alex Campbell got a lot of playing time yesterday, particularly. But it's hard to get in on those spots, especially when, there's that limit of how many Americans can be on the floor at the same time.
Yeah, Mason's tenure with the Sea Bears was kind of weird, if we're being honest. I mean, when they signed him last year, I was a big fan of the signing. I was a really big fan of his game the year prior with Calgary, and I thought he could take a next step here in Winnipeg. But I mean, they signed Jared Ogunbemi-Jackson. It's like, okay, great. They have 2 great, Canadian point guards. That's going to be a really good thing. Then they bring in Justin Wright Foreman, who was another, guard, very ball dominant, obviously. So it wasn't really a ton of meat left on the bone for Mason last year, and his role kind of changed quite a bit. You're never really sure what his role exactly was on this team. So coming to this year, no Jared, no Justin. Obviously, they're going to bring in other guards, but it's just kind of like, okay, I think he's going to have like more of a chance this year, a bigger role and whatnot. And yeah, like you said, like his minutes dropped this year. I mean, his numbers weren't exactly jumping off the page, but didn't really get a whole lot of minutes to show what he could do either. So yeah, it's kind of too bad. Mason's a really good guy. I think one of our best episodes we've had in these,
Yeah.
2.5 years now is the Mason Bourcier episode last season. So if you haven't listened to that, go back in the archives, check it out. But yeah, so yeah, kind of too bad. This is how it ends. I mean, if you go on Instagram and you look at the post that the Sea Bears made announcing this roster move, fans aren't happy. And I think a lot of them are kind of like, uh-oh, like here we go again type of thing. Because last year, I mean, we talked about this every week basically, because every week felt like someone else was like walking out the door for many different reasons. So it's like for something like this to happen only after 4 games goes back to my first point. It's discouraging. So we'll see who they bring in. I'm assuming that they're going to try to bring someone in to replace him, because they could definitely use another body, someone that can score coming off the bench and whatnot. But yeah, unexpected. We'll see where Mason lands. I'm assuming that he'll want to get back out there and play for someone, and I'm sure teams will want him. But yeah, a weird, unexpected move at this time of the year for sure.
Yeah, and actually, a good reminder to follow us at Target Score WPG is our Instagram account. If you're listening to the podcast, I always recommend you jumping over to YouTube for the added features. That is at Target Score Podcast for YouTube. And saw the comments when we first posted from the Target Score account, seeing the comments on that one from the announcement too. And there's people that are counting this team out already. A lot of people not happy with the roster move and, pointing out Mike Taylor, the general manager and head coach. There's pressure on this team now, man, in the sense that this isn't a market that's just going to sit here and accept that we're in the finals, right? We're in the conference finals. This is, people that are coming out to every game that want to be entertained. And again, the first game against Edmonton was entertaining, but they blew a huge lead. and nearly lost that game in target time, which would have been a record-setting comeback for Edmonton, for like a league record tying, I should say. And then you go put up a stinker against Calgary at home. Then you go to Calgary and put even up a bigger stinker offensively. And then you come home. Things look like, okay, this is like, I think the one thing we got from yesterday's game, the Vancouver game, was, okay, I can see what this team looks like when it's working, right? Like, I think we got that dose of, if they can play like this consistently for 30 minutes a game, 32 minutes a game, like, this is a team that's going to win a lot of games, but they're doing it for 8 minutes a game, 10 minutes a game, right? Like, it's they played so well against Vancouver. I think Vancouver was almost like taken aback at first, right? And then once they pulled up, they cut down that 13-point lead to, I think it was 2 points, 1 point at halftime. They hadn't trailed, all year at any point after a quarter, after halftime. Like, this has been a dominant team through and through in Vancouver, and this was their first little bit of adversity, and they really they sent a message. And I think the opportunity lost from Winnipeg was the Sea Bears' opportunity to not only send a message, but kind of bring down the temperature in the room, right? Like, fans are starting to feel a little bit antsy. Here we go again, as you say, right? Like, and I, on the comments on the account as well, from the Sea Bears account, like, a lot of people making note of that, right? Like, this is what happened last year. It was like, new player every week, one player out, a new player in. To be fair, this is something in the CEBL that we see. Sea Bears are not the only team that do this. It's very like an ebb and flow type system with the rosters, and I anticipate you might see some guys go to summer league or take an NBA workouts with the Sea Bears in the next little bit, and there's going to be times where you're going to have to either wait or let them go and bring somebody in. This is what this league is for. These players are using this league to move ahead to their next contract, whether that's the NBA, Europe, or even just better contracts in the CEBL. So the movement is nothing new, but there is something to be said about consistency, right? We talk Ottawa coming to town. Here's a team that has some consistency with returning players. Yeah, they're 1-2 so far this year, with that other game being postponed, the outdoor game. But there's something to be said when you have people coming in, there's already some chemistry there. And that's where the Mason release is kind of weird to me. Like, this is where I'm like, okay, I can see that he went and asked for this release because he was one of the guys that wanted, or that the team wanted, for that consistency, right? That culture consistency. As you said, I love dealing with Mason Bourcier. Like, he's a great conversation. He's very insightful, very respectful, a really good pro, like wise beyond his ears, in the sense that, like, I sometimes forget that, he's 25 or whatever he is, because he's been playing in the CEBL forever as a development player before he became a full blown pro. But, he was a guy that I thought, okay, like, makes sense. Alex Campbell, Mason Bourcier, Emmanuel Aycott to a degree, but like, those were the two that were there from the start of last year, went through it all, and kind of seemed like the good culture guys, right? Like, they're going to build up the room. So, interesting to see how the Sea Bears respond to this, and obviously we'll be watching Mason to see where he goes. But I'm curious as to what led to it. In terms of 3 games does not seem like a lot. So is it just a matter of, like, I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off now, no harm, no foul, just this, I don't see the opportunity here, I don't see it getting better, so I'm going to take time with my young family, whatever the case may be. But it's just going to be interesting to see what comes of this and how the Sea Bears shift, and what what issues need to be addressed, I guess, even internally.
Yeah, and I mean, I totally get your point that you're right. This is a league where player movement isn't out of the ordinary. Like, guys are going to be moving on to better opportunities, and guys will be released from other teams. Bring them in, and from overseas, their seasons go late or they finish early, whatever. Like, there's so many factors at play that no one's roster is going to look the same game one and then the final game of the season, no matter what. But just with, like, Mason, though, it wasn't like he's moving on to a bigger and better opportunity, got a call from an NBA team or G League team, whatever. It's like, no, like, he was not happy, we're assuming, with his role and how things are going, and he asked to leave. And again, just kind of looking at what happened last year with a couple of guys there, where yeah, there was, Darius Days, he left for a better opportunity or whatever, but like, most of the guys who left last year or asked to leave last year was for not because they had a better opportunity on the horizon, or whatever it may be. So I think that's why fans here are feeling a little, again, discouraged and a little anxious about how this starts going, and that there's a guy so early on asking to leave. And Mason was a fan favorite, even though wasn't playing 35 minutes a game. I think people really respected just like the way he goes about the game, and like he's this guy. You always, no matter what his stats are for the game, you could tell like that's the guy who's busting his ass and giving everything that he has, leaving it all out there on the floor. So in a city like Winnipeg, fans really appreciate guys like that. So yeah, so I get your point, but at the same time, it's still like when a guy's asking to leave, it's just kind of like, okay, yeah, it's not
Well,
good.
and
Not
the
good.
other thing too is like I saw in some of the comments, people saying like I bought his jersey, right? Like there's that, like you say, that continuity of, you know, because of the turnaround, like there was a guy who, yeah, not your leading scorer, not leading any major statistical categories, but was a face of the team, and he was in the marketing, like his, for all the championship weekend, him and Emmanuel Acott popping up on this, the ads on the timeline on Instagram and that. And people really connected to this guy. Here's a guy who, even at training camp, we were talking about it, starting the, proposing to his now wife, right? And, coming here with his kid. And, just it seemed like it was going to be such a special year for him, like the first year playing as a father. And it just kind of ended before it got started. But I think it does speak volumes to just what we're seeing on the court, right? You talked about the awful, like, percentage of shots, but like the selection's terrible too. Like this has been the conversation since at least game 2 in or versus Calgary before they went to Calgary. This was a team that was supposed to be, I think back to that first training camp report I did on Instagram, and Alex Campbell talks about, the ball zooming around and how excited we are to play that brand of basketball where, everybody's getting a touch, everybody's getting a feel. And there was a stretch in the third quarter or the second quarter, maybe, can't remember, but there was a stretch where Winnipeg was doing that. And I'm like, oh, this is the style that we've been hearing about. But I think what's happening is as these leads dwindle away or that pressure mounts, guys get into I just got to make up these points fast, right? And they've been in a couple of blowouts. So the 3-pointers start going up because you're hoping to, make the points back in bunches from 3-point land. And they've gone cold. Like even yesterday, they hit a few and then they started going cold in the third, but the shots are still going up. A lot of shots going up early in a possession. No passes. Like even yesterday, there was one where Tevian Jones goes up and just, there goes the shot, didn't go in, and Vancouver gets it with maybe 6 seconds off the shot clock and going back the other way, right? So the shot selection has been something that has been tough, and I don't know where the onus lies on that. Like, it seems that the coaches have one thing, but then if it's not being, if it all it takes is one player too, right? In every play, I'm not specifically blaming one player, but if a player sees something or doesn't see something, it can ruin the flow of the offense. And I think everybody's been guilty of that at some point on this team, including Mason in his limited playing time. Like there's times where you're either missing the play that's called or you're seeing something that's not there, or in that moment you think I have to step up, right? Like maybe there's too much emphasis on somebody needs to step up, why not me, as opposed to just trusting the process. But we haven't really got a clean view of what that process is offensively, at least for a stretch beyond a couple of possessions. And it's guys, I don't know, maybe it's that G League effect, right? Guys coming in, trying to get their numbers up for their next contract. I don't know what takes over in that scenario, but I can see yesterday was the first time where I'm like, okay, this is kind of the brand we've been sold on, and we're starting to see it. We just have not seen it consistently enough.
I think a concern is how do you replace Mason now? It's basically June. How many, veteran Canadian guys are out there right now that aren't already with a CEBL team or aren't already, not interested in playing this summer? So that's kind of a cause for concern. I mean, if it was an import guy and they leave, it's like, okay, well, that's too bad. But I mean, there's a lot of American guys out there that you could bring in, or European guys or whatever. But with a Canadian guy, it's like I don't really know how big the talent pool is. I mean, it's a big talent pool, but I don't know how many guys are available right now to really bring in at this point of the year. So I'm very intrigued to see if who are they going to bring in, or if they're going to bring in anyone to kind of fill in that spot. But I mean, Jeffrey James, I mean, with no Mason last night, I mean, this was a chance for him to really, make kind of a statement and say like, hey, I know we're without Mason, but I can, provide some big minutes too. But he played 15 minutes. He was 0 for 5, and he's negative 21.
Yeah.
So that's, I
To
mean, he's a
Joffrey,
U Sports guy, or Joffrey,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I'm a writer. I just got to spell their names right. I don't got to pronounce them right. In my defense. But I mean, yeah. So I mean, you need some Canadian guys off the bench that could come in and spell your starters and whatnot. So, yeah, it's a big loss for the Sea Bears. Even though Mason wasn't playing, again, huge minutes and whatever like that. That's gonna be a hard guy. That's gonna be kind of hard to replace at this time of year, I think.
And I do get the impression that the Sea Bears, Mike Taylor's high on Joffrey James, right? Like he really tends to like his game, and Joffrey James accomplished in his own right, coming off that national championship at Victoria, a development player who's really in that transitional period of making that jump. Like now his U Sports career is over and now he's a full blown pro. And this is really his first or his last development year before moving into a full time pro role overseas or wherever. But that said, you're right. Like, doesn't really have the experience to go through this kind of turmoil, right? Like, like he's a point guard like that. And this isn't a criticism on Joffrey James, but a young point guard. You could even throw this into Terry Roberts to some degree. They're going in there with the plan, right? The point guard is the one that's initiating the plan. But it takes a lot of experience to understand what the point guard role is when the plan is not going to plan, right? When guys are doing their own thing, how to get things back into control, how to control the floor, where to get the ball to ensure that you can get that offense in motion without, a shot going up because someone's not ready or they're, trapped in, like, basically getting baited to a trap in a double team or whatever the case may be. And honestly, like, even with Mason, is he a true point guard? Like, that's the other thing too. Like, he's playing point, but like when I watched him as a point guard, the one thing last year I noticed, and I said this on the podcast, was I always felt like he should be on a target time because when the ball moved through him, he wasn't looking for a shot, which could be to detriment a little bit, but there were so many shooters on that team that I think that was best, right? Like, get it through him to move the ball around to get one of those shooters a better shot. But I just think with Terry Roberts, like, no one's taking that from him. He's been their best player. Terry Roberts has been the best, most consistent player for the Sea Bears. They're only taking him off for a little bit of rest. So if you want to be a true point guard, you're hoping, for playing time, you basically have to depend on Terry Roberts needing a break or getting fouled out. And, he got fouled out the first game, but relatively speaking, I think he's going to be in more games than he's not. So that's a tough one too. So was it a matter of role acceptance? I don't know. Maybe there was, because last year's role shifted. Maybe they're just like, no, like, I wanted to do point guard or whatever. I wanted to play point, and I'm not going through this all over again. I'm not going to develop. And that's totally fair. The player has a right to make that decision if that is indeed the case. But even with the point guard situation and what they're going to do with Mason, I'm still not sold on how the bigs have been performing, right? Like Kyler Filowich has been awesome on the boards. He's having a great rookie season in that regard, but he still needs to polish up on his finish, right? And getting more involved offensively. Jalen Williams is great, but he's like playing a 5 when he's really a 4. He likes to step back and shoot the 3. And he's versatile. Solomon Young has been playing great. His minutes have been limited, but he's been another guy who's been really consistent for the Sea Bears. So that's where I'm interested to see the Simi Chateau come back, and I expect him to be back next week, probably. I think they have a week between games before they go to Brampton, so I imagine he'll be there for that game. But you throw him into the mix, now you kind of shift everybody over, right? So Kyler can play that true backup center. I don't even know how much his role would change in that regard. And then you've got Jalen Williams, who you can move over to the 4 at this point, and you could still keep Tevian Jones, Jalen Williams, and Terry Roberts on the floor because you have the 3 Americans with Chateau being Canadian. So I do. There's a light here. I don't think this is the whole season. There's going to be ups and downs. And one thing that Terry Roberts said to me yesterday before the game, like during pregame shoot around, or might have been during practice day before, I can't remember. But the one thing he said was, I'd rather go through this early than late. And I thought that's actually not a good way of looking at it. It's actually true, right? Like my dad would always say, more in the hockey realm, but he'd always say, like, you don't want your slump in March or April, right? You want your slump in October or November where there's plenty of time to make up the losses and you're peaking at the right time. So I do think the guys that are there have the mindset of like, hey, we're here, we're just like the chemistry's there. We just got to figure out how to work that chemistry on the floor against opposition. Have to keep in mind that they played arguably the 2 best teams in the league right now. I don't even think it's close, right? So you had 3 straight games, 2 against Calgary, who've surprised everybody. I've talked to a few coaches who even thought last year's team in Calgary was better than this year's team going into the season, but they've been off to a great start. Vancouver is the best team right now, like bar none. When Niagara gets Khalil Ahmad back, maybe like they're going to step up. They're always good, but Vancouver, man, like watching them and Mitch Creek. I mean, I talk about that guy so much, but he's just so good. Then you had
And
Tyrese Samuel's been
and
good. Yeah, like it's just they've got such a good team out there, and credit to Kyle Julius for putting it together. But you don't win championships now, right? And that's one thing actually, talking with Kyle Julius too, where he was saying last year in the finals, like they had a couple guys come back late in the season, and he's like, it's not that easy to get, even though they're your best guys, you're going to play them, right? Like you're not going to get a Simi Chateau and sit him on the bench, but it's going to take time for him to get into the rhythm of things. I think the one bright side is Winnipeg hasn't figured out their chemistry, so it's not like he can come in and potentially ruin it, right? Or where they have to now shift everything to feed him. So, if we're taking a silver lining out of this, like maybe this is exactly what we need to get the best out of Chateau, might be the line of thinking, right? As he comes in and we can really shape there and have the lineup that we want. I don't know if that's what they're thinking. Obviously, you want to win games, but I do have to say, like, it's not been good, but you have been playing. I think I'd be more worried if they lost this game to like Brampton, Saskatchewan, right? Like those bottom feeder teams right now that are like at the bottom of the standings, where you're losing games that you should win, which makes this Ottawa one interesting, Taylor, because with Ottawa, they're a team that's lost a couple now. They need to get back in the win column. They're in a midst of a massive road trip. I think it's a 5 or 6 game road trip that they have right now in the midst of. So, this is a game that I think is a must win. I again hate to use that term, but I think in terms of just for the fan base and the anxiety, maybe in the room, outside the room, players, fans, coaches alike, a win would go a long way on Saturday. Not going to call it a must win, but it would go a long way if they win that game.
Yeah, I was gonna pump the brakes on the must win, but yeah, I mean it would definitely help ease people's concerns about this team big time. And I mean, Chateau is going to make a massive difference when he comes, but I mean, he's not going to solve their 3-point shooting woes, right? Like he's a big guy, so even when they get him back, he's going to be one of their best players for sure. But that he's not. You can't just put everything on him. Well, we're still waiting for this guy because other teams are they're waiting for other guys too. They're not the only team in the league that are waiting for one of their star players to join them and whatnot. So yeah, I don't know. I'm having a hard time figuring this team out. But again, like your dad's point, you don't want to peak too soon. You want to peak at the right time with wise words. I mean, we've seen the Sea Bears. Year one, for example, they looked like world beaters the first few weeks of the season, and then towards the end they kind of cooled off, and then they didn't go on a run at all. So, I think we said it on the first episode of this season that these first few games, first few weeks, obviously you want to see your team get off to a hot start, but the Sea Bears, they have a huge advantage this year, again, hosting that Final Four weekend. So these first few weeks, really, it's all about just like learning to play together. I mean, this team really is brand new. They have now, I guess, only 2 players from last year with the squad, Campbell and Acott, now with Mason out. But so it really is a brand new team together, and training camp is so short in this league, right? There really isn't a whole lot of time to figure things out. So yeah, time is on their side, but again, we can't be sitting here every week saying, oh, they're going to be in that Final Four weekend, so they got time. So I'm only going to play that card maybe once or maybe twice more, but because at the end of the day, you do want to see these guys getting better game after game after game. And I mean, again, like we said, last night's game, there were some signs of improvement for sure, but I mean, when they're up 13 with 4 minutes left in the first half, and then they blow it, and they were up, I think, only 1 heading into halftime, or maybe 2. It's kind of like, oh, well, there goes that that great first half that you guys had against this amazing team, and then sure enough, the third quarter, Vancouver, really kind of kicked it into gear, and the rest was kind of history. So yeah, I mean, you gotta see these guys get better game after game after game. Otherwise, people are going to be even more so discouraged, and people are paying their hard-earned money to see these guys play. It doesn't matter that they're going to be there at the end. Like, people still want to see this team show up throughout the summer. So yeah, it's been disappointing start, but we'll see. And a big game against Ottawa this weekend would help a lot for sure.
With that, had a chance to catch up with Jackie Perez. She's the sideline reporter for the Ottawa BlackJacks. Let's turn to that one here. Here's our conversation with Jackie Perez, sideline reporter of the Ottawa BlackJacks. Here with Ottawa BlackJacks sideline reporter Jackie Perez, who is a veteran broadcaster, and you're now in your second season with the Ottawa BlackJacks. I want to ask you first about the experience of being a sideline reporter. You and I had worked together in Regina, and through the years, we've always loved basketball. We both found our way to being sideline reporters. How's the experience been for you?
I mean, I just want to say how cool is that we find each other. I mean, in different parts of the country, but still that connection. I mean, I was nervous my first year. I remember running to you and being like, "What do you think?" I feel like it's going to be overwhelming. I know nothing about the CEBL, and your just enthusiasm for not just the sideline reporting role and love for basketball, but just for the league really made me excited for it. And you were absolutely right. And that's the only time I will admit that to anyone, that Joey Slattery was right. That you were right. That just the league is fantastic. The unique target scoring element of it, just the idea of really fostering Canadian talent and even picking out players from all over the world to play in a league like this that is Canada grown. It's really amazing. And I love that I was asked to be back for a second year to be part of it.
Well, I'm going to say, Jackie, you're off to a flying start. Anytime I can fish a compliment out this early in an interview, I'm in. So we are good to go. We are rolling. Now, this is your second year, as you said. Last year, I find Ottawa to be that team that sometimes kind of flies under the radar, right? Like they're consistent in the East, but they're never really talked about as like the contender, but they've got some really good players. For me, Deng Adel might be one of the more underrated players in the league. I think he's phenomenal at what he's doing. But what is the temperature in Ottawa this year? You look from last year to this year, like where does the hope lie that this year they're going to move ahead?
I think what's impressive about this year compared to last year is that you have a lot of the core guys coming back. I mean, last year there were over 20 transactions in the season alone. Very unique position that Ottawa's put in compared to a lot of the other teams last year. And the fact that they were able to not only make a playoff run, but even come close to making it to championship weekend was huge. And I think that speaks to not just the coaches, but the players and just the franchise or the club as a whole. Seeing a lot of the returning players come back and to have that stability. I know that the coaches and even the GM, Jen Sturwin, said that that was huge for coming into this year. So building that connection, building that chemistry early on, even from training camp, made a huge difference.
You look at last year, 2024, they were not had the same record as the Sea Bears. They were 9-11, finished in third in the East when in the regular season. And the consistency, Jackie, I think is kind of key. I mean, that's something that a lot of teams struggle with in terms of guys come and go, and there tends to be like you see like these runs, right? There's certain guys that are going to come back every single year to the CEBL. Other guys, it might be like a 1 or 2 year stint, maybe a break in between, and then they come back because it is a lot of basketball. But what, when you're talking to these players, what is it that keeps drawing them back to Ottawa? It looks like they've got a beautiful facility. I've never had a chance. I'll be there this year, actually, calling a game on July 1st for CJOB, which I'm excited for because I've been in the arena. I've never seen it in a basketball setting.
Oh, it's a fantastic setting. And I was talking to one of the coaches, and you're just saying that this is one of his favorite arenas to visit because it does give that fan experience. It does give that basketball vibe because I haven't been to the other arenas. But yes, we do share the ice with the PWHL team. And I think the beginning of the season, there was this crazy turnaround where you have the ice and you got to convert it to the courts within 8 hours, and the fear of condensation, or is that enough time to really make sure the floor is not slippery? That was a little bit of an issue, but we managed to get through for at least the first 2 home games that we've had so far this season, or the preseason rather. But when you talk about the guys and what is it that keeps them coming back, I mean, you've got key guys like Terrell Tate. He's been here for quite a couple of years, and he is a leader. He's part of that leadership group. And you also have Deng Adel, and you mentioned him too. He's already broken a bunch of the franchise records in the first game. Talking to him at training camp, he was just saying how he loves seeing how basketball is continuing to grow here in Ottawa. And really, for him, it's about the community and seeing kids that, the earlier years, getting out into the community as an Ottawa BlackJacks player, getting into these school clinics, inspiring them, and get these kids coming to games. And years later, they're still continuing basketball, or they're become a forever fan. That is what's inspiring for Deng Adel. And he's really been pushing, not just for him, but for the players, just how important it is to be out there in the community and to bring that awareness. The BlackJacks are here and they're here to stay.
Is it safe to say that, the team kind of, revolves around him on the court, that is, maybe off the court as well? But I mean, look at his stats this year. He's averaging a double-double. He's got 22 points? Averaging 22 points, 10 rebounds. And the other thing is nearly 6 assists a game. Like, it's the thing with him that, really kind of cements him as a great player is not only his ability to score and grab rebounds, but his ability to create for other players. I mean, you have 4 players that are in double figures, but how does he, kind of carry that team? How does the offense work around him, or even just that on-court culture, I guess?
I think because he's been on the team for 4 seasons, right? You understand the style of play. I mean, yes, we do have a new head coach in Dave DeVario, but he was the assistant coach prior to this. So there is still that style, that consistency that is very familiar for Deng. I mean, having that relationship with Tyrell, you've seen Tyrell hit up consistently threes from the paint, and it's just fantastic to see the chemistry. You have returning even Isaiah Moore. He plays such a big role on the court here. So it was kind of unfortunate to see that he has been inactive the last 2 games, and you have really seen the impact of him not being on the court. But again, when you have that chemistry, they can feed off each other. They pick up on each other's strengths, because I would say that Ottawa is very strong offensively.
Yeah, and it's funny you brought up the floor. I have to ask you about this too, because you break the floor with the ice, and we had the same thing here in Winnipeg for the first 2 games, because the Jets were in the playoffs in the second round, and in the short history of the Sea Bears, that's the first time we've ever had overlap. And I remember sitting there, and I was doing play-by-play, and all of a sudden I'm like, I feel warm, but my feet are cold. And I couldn't figure it out. And then I looked down. I'm like, oh, because we're not on the pavement. Like, it had the covers. Like, you could kind of see the ice a little bit through the cracks.
Yeah.
And I thought, that makes a lot of sense. But we didn't have any issues with the condensation in Winnipeg. But in Ottawa, you did. And then you go to Montreal for maybe the coolest event yet for the CEBL in that outdoor game. It looked awesome. Unfortunate that they weren't able to finish off that game. But tell me about that experience. You were out there, you with AJ, the play-by-play commentator there in Ottawa. You guys made the trip. What was the drive to go, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, I mean, I think you would sum up the beginning of the season where condensation was a factor for the Ottawa BlackJacks. Last year was the player transaction. This year, condensation. So we talked about PWHL, the Ottawa team, making it to the finals, and that turnaround. One day it was ice, one day it was courts. So it was condensation during the day before the game, or the day before home opener. So there was concern for that. But then the next day, they really did turn up the AC, or the cold, or whatever keeps that ice from melting, because it was freezing in that arena. But that's a good thing, because I will want that in the summertime. But coming to this next game here in Montreal, I mean, it's a 2-hour drive. It got a rain delay it was originally supposed to be on Friday, but because of the rain and paying attention very closely to the weather, they decided to move it to Sunday. So bonus for me, because I'm like, okay, yeah, I can make the trip, 2 hours. So AJ and I just got in a car, made our way down, and we had 4 hours to kill. So good time to quickly sightsee around Montreal. And then I just didn't really hit me until I got there that we were at IGA Stadium, where they play just world-class elite tennis. And I was like, you know what? I saw on paper that it was going to be here, but to be in that arena or that stadium just took my breath away. And to see them convert it into the court was it was a sight to see. And I know when we were there, the game, tip-off 7:30. We were there probably around 4. It started to downpour. Luckily, they had tarps on it, so they took extra care to make sure that the court was not wet. When we got there, played first half, no issues. And then the halftime performance happened. And then after that, I think it was 9:00. And then I think the players came out, and you could just see them sliding. They didn't even try playing, but you could just see them as they walked on that. It was not something that was safe to play in. And then half an hour, 45 minutes later, you start seeing like the towels being wiped through. Then you start seeing what caught my eye, just people who were sitting courtside, the in-game host, the dancers. They started bringing towels and just started trying to wipe down as each corner as what they could to try to get the second half going. And unfortunately, we couldn't. So it's postponed.
Yeah, it was that was really cool to see, actually. Like, there's some videos on social media where you see everybody going in, like, not even from the CEBL account. Like, there were a couple of public ones, like, only in Canada, right? But it was cool. I was a little shocked that they scheduled it for that early in the season. And I'm sure there's a reason for it, like scheduling, and obviously, in the summer it is probably used for tennis. But I was thinking, like, I really hope the weather cooperates. And even leading up to that, Mike Morreale was in Winnipeg, and he's like, we're just keeping an eye on the weather, like, fingers crossed or whatever. And I was like, and I said something along the lines, I'm like, it'll be fine. These things tend to work out.
That's what I was saying up until tip off, and even during the game, I'm like, it's fine. It's not raining. It's not raining, so we're okay. We're in the clear. And I'm the weather anchor here in Ottawa, so I was paying very close attention. I was like, trust me, guys, no more rain, which was true. But then the condensation factor or just other factors came into play. So.
Yeah, it's too bad, but I'm glad that they took the swing for it. And, there are plans to make that a regular thing. So it'd be cool. And, I had Chris Wiggins on the last episode, and I was asking, like, do you think Vancouver's there? And he's like, well, I don't know where they'd play exactly. I'm sure they'd figure it out. Cause I'm thinking, like, man, every city's got to be looking at, like, where's our, like, A, our great outdoor stadium, or B, like, where we can makeshift a stadium with, like, a beautiful, background and backdrop for the cameras. But Montreal did a fantastic job. Even I know we're like, you're not the Montreal reporter, but like, it seems to me too, like, I'm looking at Montreal from like just a marketing standpoint.
Yeah.
Like, they're kind of becoming like the cool team in the CBL. Like, I feel like the Sea Bears have been that since they got here. They have the cool colors, the fans come out, they play at the big arena and stuff. But I've always kind of looked at Montreal, where they play normally, the Verdun Stadium, that looks really cool. And now, they've got new ownership, like led by Joel Anthony, and those new jerseys are maybe the nicest in
They're
the league.
beautiful, yeah.
Love them. But like, Montreal to me is like that team where I'm like, man, they've really got that cool factor going on. And then you throw in the outdoor game. I mean, did you feel at any point where they have like more than 9,000 people there? Did you feel that excitement from a Montreal standpoint? Do you feel like that, what they're doing is going to draw more fans out there?
It honestly, no, it was really nice to see the passion and the enthusiasm from fans. And even though there was this long delay, nobody left. Everyone was sticking around. And I think what was really cool to see was just the engagement. And for every shot that Montreal made, the fans were just up on their feet cheering, no matter what the shot was. And just, they were so engaged. And for me, that was really neat to see. Like, you could see their passion with it. I was like, man, I'm like, it's coming. Like, you see it a little bit in Ottawa here for sure, but Montreal, just the engagement, and to hear that echo of 9,000 in that stadium was just, I mean, that's going to be a core memory for me for sure. Like, I just kept looking around in awe just to see the fan base and the fandom that you could see it's growing. It's continuing to grow. And it's kids as young as like 5 or 6, and they're coming out with families. And the engagement even afterwards, the players, I think that was really cool and very such a class act, where once they said, hey, we're postponing the game, the players from the BlackJacks as well as the Montreal Alliance, they came out, they applauded the fans for sticking it with them. They even stuck around on the courts taking pictures and like chatting with fans too. So again, what I love about this league is how community oriented and community based it is.
Is that rivalry there yet? Like, with Montreal and Ottawa, I understand, like, geographically speaking, they're close. There's like a little bit of that natural rivalry, but like, is there rivalry? Is that a game they get up for, or does this game even help that at all? Or was this just, just another opponent? I'm just trying to gauge that rivalry there. Cause when I saw the match, I'm like, makes sense, but I've never really thought of it as but I've never thought of it as like, oh, the Ottawa Montreal rivalry. Like, when Quebec City arrives, to this league. Like that'll be Montreal's for sure. But is there any kind of tension there, or is this something that, might develop over time?
I hope it develops over time. It was funny, and I don't know if it's because I spoke to the players during training camp, and it was the lead up to the Niagara River Lions game. And I believe the next home game we're going to have is against the Niagara River Lions again. Correct me if I'm wrong. But just talking to them, I think that's what they've had marked or targeted a win against them, because they were the last team they played last season. Like, that's what ended the Ottawa BlackJacks season, a loss against the River Lions. And then the home opener, you see, like, it was such a close game at the target score at the end. I think we lost by 2. So you also have that sibling rivalry where Mishak Lufile, his brother Elijah, is on the Niagara River Lions. So I think, not that I don't know if we're creating it, but I think that what I've been picking up on is just the target is on the River Lions, and just they want to show up this year. And I think that's where the rivalry is, as opposed to the Montreal Lions.
Well, and it's no, but it's fair. Like, and the other thing too is, like, Niagara this year is the team with the target on their back, right? Just in terms of the going back and winning the championship last year. So I feel like when you have that, the championship to your name, you kind of become that target team, and then it just adds to it, right? Knowing that you were so close to the team that won it all, that totally makes sense. And Niagara, just a great team overall. But you take that into account now. So that game postpones. There's no results from that game. So the BlackJacks, so they've technically played 4, really only have 3 registered games. They're 1-2. The Winnipeg Sea-Bears just lost to Vancouver last night, recording this one on May 29th. The Sea-Bears now have a desperation, right? In the sense that I think the fans are getting a little antsy. They played much better against Vancouver yesterday, but, after a strong first half, they kind of let it go in the third quarter, or were never able to recover. And this is a team that has a bye to the conference final simply because championship weekend's being hosted in Winnipeg. But in a 24-game season, and yes, they've extended it by 4 games, and we've talked about that on prior podcasts, but at 1-2, coming on the road, like your first kind of real road trip, right? Like where you're getting out of, you're heading west, playing another division opponent. What is the urgency like for, or should be like for, Ottawa in this scenario where they're coming to Winnipeg against a team that has now lost 3 straight, and both teams really looking for a win?
Yeah, I mean, you said it yourself. They are looking for a win. I think last season, the team, they finished with a road record of 3-7. So I know that that's something that they really want to improve on for this year. So far, while we've been on the road, we haven't gotten a win yet. So, and I mean, yes, the Montreal game was finished, but we were trailing by about 20 points, or BlackJacks were trailing by 20, I think 25 points. But I think they are still looking for that first road win. So I think going out to Winnipeg against the Sea-Bears, that this is a must win for the team to just build that momentum as they continue on. Because I think we're going to be on the road for quite a bit for the month of June. Because here in Ottawa, there's a volleyball tournament that's happening that we're hosting. So I think for the month of June that the BlackJacks will be on the road. So if they win against the Winnipeg Sea-Bears, this will be the start of a momentum that they need to continue on as they journey on.
Yeah, and they've been through like tight games, like you say, the Niagara game, 2-point loss. Then the day game against Scarborough, 87-86 loss, and that's the first of the road trip. So then it's Scarborough, Winnipeg, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton. That has to be the longest road trip of the year for any team, I'm sure. 5-game road trip, all out west. So they're getting a good tour of Western Canada. I'm kind of going back and forth though between Winnipeg, then all the way to Vancouver, then Calgary, then Edmonton. But this is going to be a huge test for that team, and it's very similar to Winnipeg last year, 1-9. Right, they only got through into the playoffs because they were so good at home, and this year that's proving not to be the same factor. They've had 3 games at home and they've lost 2 of them. So I think there's definitely the opportunity for Ottawa to step up. And, just got the news that Mason Bourcier is gone. So there's a little bit of, question marks of, who's going to step in. Is there another player out there for Winnipeg to sign? Simi Chateau still hasn't arrived, and a lot of people are getting excited for him. But this game with Ottawa, I think, is important for both teams, really. Yeah. But even from the Winnipeg standpoint, I mean, the one thing they've been talking about since training camp is they don't want to be that team that relies on the bye to the conference final, right? Like they want to win, they want to earn their way in. The last 3 years, the team, I think Ottawa's was the first one that went through this, like didn't have a great season when they hosted, didn't win the game, the conference final game, right? And then that started a trend of then Vancouver did the same thing. And last year it was Montreal. But even Vancouver last year, the year before, they were not great. They had an awful season. Then they go to the finals and almost beat Niagara in the finals. So I'm interested in this to see how these teams respond, as you say, with the road record that they had last year and starting a massive road trip. I know it started technically against Scarborough, but really kind of starting the big part of the road trip here. Yeah. What's important for them? Like in order for them to stay to their style of game, for them to like, what do they need to establish against Winnipeg in order to make sure that they're exploiting their strengths?
I think, I think they really need to improve that defense strategy. I think, Isaiah Moore, big guy. We got him last year. He's well-rounded, but he's been inactive for the last 2 games. And that is an important player who protects the paint.
Are you excited to see how he's going to turn out? Like after being ineligible for 2 games, like what are you most looking for in him to make sure, like, or to see how he's going to recover and how he's going to like mesh into the offense or just the team in general?
Yeah, I mean, like he protects the rim, right? Like he's aggressive down there, and that's the main priority of his. But he also has this energy that he pumps up his team, whether it's offensively or for getting those rebounds. And I do think that another defensive player as well is Shakur Daniel, and just get him finding his groove with the team as well, and also just trying to really. It's just the team overall picking up and seeing where they can go with this defensively. I think that's the biggest thing that they need to do, because offensively, they're able to knock down those threes. They're able to really pass the ball around, move it around. But I think what's going to be important against the Winnipeg Sea Bears is protecting the paint. Yeah,
and that's an area where, Winnipeg has shown flashes. Like their rebounding hasn't been awful. It's but one of the issues they've had, and it happened yesterday too, where you get the offensive rebound, but they're not able to turn it for 2, right? And protecting the paint and dominating the glass has been something the team reiterates. It's a bigger Sea Bears team this year, but I don't think it's come to the fruition. We've seen a lot of terrible shot selection with the Sea Bears. That's been something the head coach Mike Taylor's been harping on, is the shot selection, and they've been getting burned in transition defense. A lot of it having to do with those missed shots. You talked about Dave DeViro earlier. What's the biggest difference you notice between him and James DeRuin? Because James has now moved up to the general manager spot, but he was the head coach last year. Yeah. I just remember during the shoot around, you notice the difference in, I don't know if like character, personality would be the right word, but there's one that tends to be like in my, the way
That's
my
funny
view, I guess,
you say that.
was like, as one seems really laid back, but okay. Let's back it up a little bit. I'll be fair to this. I do have previous experience with Dave DeViro as being a super intense dude when I was in high school. My coach.
When you were 16?
Yes, when I was 16 years old, I think exactly. My head coach played for Ottawa U. He played for Dave DeViro, like back in the day. We're talking the 90s. And he came up for a camp, and we were all like, man, this guy is so then I saw him on the court, and I talked to him last year when he came through. I was like, yeah, I just remember you kept rolling through to Timmins, Ontario, and he remembered the camp or whatever. But yeah, I was like, yeah, I just remember we were all like, oh man, Coach Dave's here. We better really tighten up our shoes here and get running. But what's the key difference, I guess, when you see him moving up from the assistant coaching role to the head coaching role? Have you noticed anything in terms of, how the players have been reacting or different styles of play? Like what's really been the key difference early with DeViro taking over the reins?
Oh, man, honestly, I wish I had a sexy story like you right now, but for me, I feel like because he was the assistant coach prior to this season, I think the style has just continued on, right? I mean, Coach DeViro was the Ottawa GG's coach for quite some time before James Derwin took over. So I would imagine that their style of play is different. I have not quite seen a huge difference. I think it's just carrying on and maintaining the style of play of the Ottawa BlackJacks. So I haven't really seen much difference, even just with the players. I think from just day one, and that's under the leadership of James Derwin, it was really about making sure that everyone feels welcome, that it's important to build a chemistry and connection, that this place has a family vibe. And I think that has carried on under the leadership of Dave DeVero. So when you say you were intimidated by him, I'm just like, I'm trying to remember. Was I ever? He just comes in with a smile. He's like, "Hey, how's it going?" And you just see, just even his style of play, or just style of coaching. I would say it's actually a little bit more reserved, like what on the court, than it is than James. But again, it's still early. Could be very wrong about all of this, but that was just my first impressions I've gotten so far this season.
Yeah, and I guess, cut from the same cloth, so to speak, right? Like both coaches at Ottawa U, obviously really close. And even last year, you noticed, Dave DeVero during shoot around, like working most of it out and stuff. So it's like now that you see how it's all worked out, you can kind of see that transition might have been happening even, last year or whatever. And Joey Slattery, all he brings is enthusiasm and sexy stories, Jackie. That's why I'm here.
This is why we're all here, Joey.
That was Jackie Perez, the Ottawa BlackJacks sideline reporter for the CEBL. Great conversation with her. And yeah, big game ahead. The Sea Bears play Saturday. What is that, May 31st? I'm not even sure of the date. Saturday, May 31st. It's a 7:30 start, so half an hour later than the games we've been seeing. And a big one. As we heard, the Ottawa's got some, big players. They're gone through a coaching change, and they're looking to make their mark on the road. Another team who had a rough road record last year, just like the Sea Bears, and knowing that Canada Life Center is not an easy place to play, but in the last few games, not as hard as it used to be, apparently, after the last couple of games with Calgary and Vancouver. So we'll see how it goes. Your Pacers, next time we talk, Taylor, your Pacers might be Eastern Conference champions. You might actually get your own Eastern Conference champion shirt this year.
I would never buy an Eastern Conference champion shirt, because if you don't go on to win the big one, you kind of look a little lame wearing that. So I'll wait till they maybe take down the Thunder in the NBA Finals before I buy any more Pacers merch. But man, what a ride! What a ride these Pacers have been on, eh? No one gave them a chance against the Cleveland Cavaliers, the number 1 seed in the East, right? Everyone was already talking weeks ago. It's going to be Cavs Thunder at the end.
I didn't think that.
A lot of people did. I mean,
I know. I don't know.
Conversation too, but yeah, people were riding the Cavs pretty hard.
I was kind of hoping like that it would be a Cavs Celtics conference final, because I thought the Cavs were frauds all the way through. Like, I know they had a great season, I'll take it away from it. I'm like, this just doesn't seem like a championship team to me. And then the Pacers and you know what? The experience from last year with the Pacers going through the playoffs and, getting swept in the Eastern Conference Finals, I think that kind of lit a fire a little bit, right? You're not going to let it get away. It doesn't matter what your seeding is. You just got to win those 4 games before the other team does. And I think the experience paid off there. Cleveland doesn't have that run under their belt, right? And then they get upset in the first round. But Pacers are poised here. They have a chance to clinch it. We're recording this on the 29th. So Taylor itching to go so he can watch his Pacers destroy the Knicks. Is this one in Indiana, or is it? No, it's in New York, right?
Game 5.
Yeah, it's in New York. Yeah. That would be awesome to see them eliminate them at Madison Square Garden.
That would be
I need to see the Halliburton choke. I love that he brought that back. I really wish it was the winner, but I'm glad they won in the end. But that was unreal.
he did say if he would have known his toe was on the line, he probably would not have brought out the Reggie Miller choke. But whatever. It's still
in the moment you have to, right? You don't know, but exactly. All right, so we will wrap this up. Any final thoughts, Taylor?
Final thoughts. Final thoughts. I'm trying to. I still can't even wrap my mind around the fact that the Indiana Pacers are on the cusp of going to the NBA Finals. I know this is a Winnipeg Sea Bears podcast, but damn it, last year I had to listen to all this Celtics talk constantly. So I'm gonna have my time in the sun a little bit while I can. But I was saying to you off the air, though. I mean, I'm sitting there last night. I'm watching the Thunder, make easy work of Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I'm excited. Obviously, of course, I'm very excited to see what the Pacers could do, hopefully, in the finals. But you're watching the Thunder playing like, oh my goodness, that team's an absolute wagon. So it's going to be tough. I'm excited, but I'm tempering my expectations. I haven't bought any gold and blue confetti just yet, but you never know. You never know what could happen. And again, this Thunder team is very young, and this Pacers team, they were in the Eastern Conference Final last year, so they've got some experience. Pascal Siakam, former champion with the Raptors, having him has been fantastic. And I think just having a veteran like him who's been there, done that before, has been massive as well. So So we'll see. And I know the networks and maybe the casual basketball fan are going to be like, Thunder and Pacers, Oklahoma City and Indiana. Brutal. Like, that's not a very sexy matchup on paper, but if you're a true basketball fan, I think you're going to really enjoy that series. Because, I mean, the way that both those teams play is a ton of fun. It's going to be fast-paced, awesome basketball. Some young, up-and-coming stars as well. So all the people that just want to see LeBron or that lame team in Boston, whatever the name is, just hold on. Be patient here. It's going to be a fun NBA Finals, even though the ratings are going to be probably horrendous. But I don't care about that.
Man, the amount of time sexy has been dropped in this podcast. I will say, though, don't look too far ahead. You still, teams have blown 3-1 leads.
Oh, I know.
I'm not putting that out there, but hey, they got to take care of the Knicks before that. Also, just a reminder, Saturday's game, I don't know if you can see my shirt. WPW, I can't get up enough. WPW is having their halftime show, wrestling show. So this is going to be a great time for Joey Slattery. For those who follow me on Instagram, know that I love local pro wrestling. But yes, so follow us on @TargetScoreWPG for Instagram, @TargetScore Podcast on YouTube. Make sure that you're subscribed with notifications on anywhere you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Stay up to date with everything. We will be back next week with another episode breaking down this Ottawa game and looking ahead to Brampton. Until then, enjoy yourselves this weekend. Enjoy the game on Saturday, 7:30 on Game Plus, TSN Plus, and CEBL Plus. But we hope to see you there in person. Taylor, we'll see you next week, buddy.
You bet. And maybe we'll see the Crusher himself, David Asper, step into the squared circle on Saturday. You never know. We'll see.
Stay tuned.